Hi, I'm Olivia. Welcome to class. So today this class is thinking about a posture called downward facing dog, which comes up a lot in active styles of yoga, in particular flow yoga, which is something that I tend to lead a lot. But we're going to be looking at how to refine this posture for you. And by that, I mean, not trying to make it look a certain way. There is no perfect way to do anything with your body. Instead, what I mean by that is trying to find out what version of this shape works best for you. So it'll be a little bit of trial and error. I'm going to be using a yoga block. If you haven't got one of those, then you could maybe have a cushion or a book. Something like that would work really well. And that's it. Let's start lying down on your back. And have your knees bent. Reach your arms straight up to the ceiling in front of you and have your block or your cushion, whatever the prop is, in between your hands. So in a minute, your prop, your block, is going to start moving up and down, kind of closer to the ceiling and closer to the floor. But I don't want you to lift your head or shoulders up. You're not going to be bending your arms. All I want you to do is imagine keeping head and shoulders on the floor. Imagine that you're trying to push the block as close to the ceiling as possible. So what's happening is your shoulder blades are gliding apart on your back, and it might almost feel like your upper back rounds a little bit. And then keep your arms straight, but now bring your shoulder blades towards each other on your back. So block will drop down towards the floor. And then see if you imagine you're almost trying to pinch your mat or the floor in between your shoulder blades. And we'll just keep on doing that a few more times. So pushing the block away, shoulder blades broaden apart, and then draw shoulder blades towards each other. So block will drop down. Just a few times. So just getting a sense that you can move your shoulder blades around on your back. And then next time you're pushing the block away from you, keep that, but now also start to take it all the way overhead. So you might find for some people, the block will comfortably rest on the floor. And for other people, it won't quite get there. And that's okay. Both of those are just completely normal and fine. Just take the block overhead until body says that's enough. And then when you get to a point where body has told you enough, now try and push it away from you towards the wall behind you. So your arms are like pushing the block away from your head. And then keep that pushing away feeling as you now also bring the block back up towards the ceiling again. And then bring shoulder blades towards each other on your back. And bring your arms down. So that pushing away from you, especially while your arms are overhead. We'll be using that technique a bit later. Let's rock up to sit and then shift to hands and knees. So I'm going to turn towards you just because it's going to make seeing what I'm doing a little bit easier. Starting from all fours, you're going to keep your legs just where they are, but walk your hands around. Imagine you are on like the face of a clock. You're going to walk your hands not by turning them on the spot, but by actually shifting them. Walk them from like 12 o'clock to then maybe 11, and then perhaps 10. Some of you might want to stop at 10. Some of you might want to walk around to 9. That's your choice. So legs have stayed where they are, but now I'm just bending sideways. And when you feel like you don't want to turn anymore, now with your right hand, slide away from you along the floor. So you're reaching out to the side with that hand. So what I'm looking for is a stretch in your right side. Now keep doing what you're doing, but instead of lifting your tailbone up, I want you to think about tucking your tailbone underneath, like you're slightly rounding your back. And then breathe into the right side of your rib cage. And experiment with whether you could press the right side of your ribs out into more of a curve. So you might be able to feel it. There's like some thick, strong tissues that run kind of from your armpit down your sides, sort of blend into this area of connective tissue around your pelvis. If that stuff there is tight, could in theory, I guess, restrict you being from able to take your arm overhead. So we're just starting by giving this area a stretch. So one more deep breath in here. And then as you breathe out, slide that hand back. You can pad your hands around to 12 o'clock again. And then from there, go to like 1 or 2 or maybe 3. It doesn't matter. You just turn until your body says enough. And then your left hand, let's slide that away from you. So you're reaching out like towards the edge of that clock face. And think about, instead of inward curve lower back, you're slightly rounding your spine, trying to angle your tailbone now down towards the floor. Imagine you could breathe a bit more into the left side of your ribs. So into that stretching sensation. Take one more deep inhale. And then as you exhale, slide your hands back. Shift to all fours. Okay, great. Let's step your right foot forwards into a lunge. And maybe come up onto your fingertips. You might, if you feel like you've got space to, wiggle your back knee back a little bit. So what I want you to do is lean your torso on that front leg thigh. In a minute, I'm going to ask you to straighten your front leg a bit. And probably what your body will want to do is shift away from your leg so your leg can straighten more. Instead of prioritizing the straightening, prioritize that connection, thigh to torso. So take a breath in where you're at. And as you breathe out, just straighten your front leg until it stops while keeping chest on thigh. As you inhale, rebend front knee, foot flat. Exhale, shift your weight back. And just coming in and out of this. So this might not be the way you always do this position. That's okay. Don't have to always do stuff the same way. So what I'm prioritizing here is like a deep fold at the front of your right hip. Because in downward dog, we're wanting there to be a fold in the front of your hips. Next time you end up shifting back, just pause like that. And then now that front heel, dig it down into the floor and imagine that you're trying to pull the mat towards you with that heel. Then as you inhale, rebend that knee, foot flat. Exhale, step back, hands and knees. Dead simple, other foot forwards. Hands either side of front foot if that works. Get your torso in contact with that thigh and then keep it in contact. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, shift your weight back, maybe come onto front heel. Keep leaning on your front leg. Inhale, rebend front knee, foot flat. Exhale, shift your weight back. And just coming in and out of this a few times. So for some of you, when you shift back, your body will go further than mine. And for some of you, it won't go as far. And that's normal, that's fine. Everyone's a bit different. So next time you shift back, pause like that. Hold there, keep breathing. Keep your torso in contact with your leg. And now with your front heel, dig down and try and pull the mat towards you with your front heel. Imagine you somehow had a tail and someone is like pulling your tail straight back behind you. And then let's rebend that knee, foot flat. Step your front foot back, all fours. Okay. So let's think about how you might want to place your hands for downward facing dog. We're going to try 3 ways, and there isn't a correct one. I just want you to try them all and then pick your favorite. So look down at your hands. Have your hands directly underneath your shoulders, no wider. And have your middle fingers on each hand parallel with each other. And if you're on a yoga mat, with the sides of your yoga mat. So middle fingers are pointing straight forwards and your hands are like relatively narrow, shoulder distance. Keep that, tuck your toes under and send your hips up and back to like a triangle shape, downward facing dog. Okay. So the first little portion of class, we're kind of thinking about shoulders. Just notice how this feels for you. Like, so how does it feel around the sides of your neck? Maybe tops of shoulders, maybe armpits. What about elbows or wrists? Do you feel able to push the floor away from you? Are you able to comfortably straighten your arms? For some of you, the answer might be no. And then keep your hands where they are, but bring your knees back down to the floor. Now, keep your middle fingers pointing forwards. Just sorting my jewelry out. But take your hands a little bit wider apart, so maybe like a couple of centimeters, like 2 to 4 centimeters sort of wider apart from each other. In fact, I think my hands went a bit more than that. It's just because I know I like them wide already. So your middle fingers are still parallel, but your hands are now a bit wider than shoulder distance. If you end up with your finger, your little finger maybe going off the sides of your mat, that's okay. Mats aren't all like one size fits all. Let's tuck your toes under and then send your hips up and back, downward facing dog. So now seeing how this feels, kind of around shoulders, neck, elbows, wrists, like anything that you noticed in the last version, how does it compare now? It might be that you just feel the same. That's okay too. And then bring your knees down onto the floor. Okay, so last version, I want you to keep your hands as wide as they are, but just a little bit, like literally a couple of degrees. Turn each hand to point out slightly. So if your middle fingers were pointing straight forwards, now let's have your index fingers parallel with each other and pointing straight forwards. Okay. And then tuck your toes under, send your hips up and back, downward facing dog. And see how that feels. So for some of you, all of those three will feel kind of the same. But for some of you, there'll be one, it's like, whoa, this is like a really strong, clear preference. And then remembering what you discovered, if anything, about which hand placement you like. Let's bring your knees down onto the floor again. Okay, so starting to think maybe a little bit more about lower body. There is no need to get your heels down to the floor in downward facing dog. For some people that works, it's going to have a lot to do with their proportions, and for other people it doesn't. But let's see if we can do something to get a little bit more ease kind of in the back portion of lower legs. So step your right foot forwards. Okay, so I've started with my foot flat on the floor. Now what I want you to do is walk your hands so far forwards, until that front heel is forced to pick up off the floor. So if I swivel around, you might be able to see a little bit easier. I started from here and then I walked way forwards. Okay. Now, my front heel can't touch the floor here, but what I want you to try and do is press down and back through that heel. You could even, for some of you, it will help to use your right hand to like cup that heel and press it down and back. So some of you will feel this as like a stretch up the lower portion of the back of your leg. Some of you might feel it as kind of work in the front of your shin. That's okay. And then just nice and gently, just untangle, shift back to all fours. Remember how we were placing your hands before? Choose your favorite out of those three hand positions you had. So mine is always a bit wider and a bit turned out. Yours might be one or neither of those. Tuck your toes under, send your hips up and back, downward facing dog. And then let's gently alternate, bending one knee and then the other. And again, like different stuff works for different people. For some of you, your legs will feel the same. For some of you, your right leg that we were just stretching a little bit, it'll feel like that heel drops more down towards the floor. And then you can do this with your knees up or down. Let's step your left foot forwards, back knee down. Great. So first of all, my heel's flat on the floor. And then I'm going to walk my hands way forwards until that heel is forced to pick up off the floor. And then press your front heel down and back. If you get to the point where it's actually able to touch the floor, all you need to do is walk your hands more forwards. So you want there to be constantly like space, air time in between your heel and the floor, so that heel can keep on dropping down and back. You can just be using the strength of your leg to press heel down and back, or you could be maybe using your left hand to help it. That's your choice. Slowly shift back, all fours. Choose your favorite hand placement, hands kind of narrow and pointing forwards, or a bit wider and or a bit turned out. If turning them out or taking them wider feels nice, you can maybe try doing it a little bit more this time. So you can just keep on going with whatever you find works for you. And then tuck your toes under and send your hips up and back, downward facing dog. And then again, maybe let's alternate, bending one knee and then the other, seeing how your two legs feel. So with your fingertips, you are gripping the floor. And let's pause that motion in your legs and just feel for a moment with your arms, try and push the floor away from you. Remember like when you were pushing the block away from your head? And then last thing here, let's experiment with, see how it feels to let your head completely dangle. And then see how it feels to maybe angle the top of your head more towards your thumbs. You might like either one of those or perhaps to be somewhere in between. And then let's drop your knees down onto the floor. Sit back onto your heels for a child's pose. You can always just come to sit if you prefer. So you could go arms reaching forwards. You could have your arms back alongside you. I'm just not letting my head rest down because it rustles my microphone. So we've done lots of stuff in downward facing dog where your shoulders were in flexion. That means your arms went kind of forwards and overhead. Your hips are in flexion, which is like a forward fold position. So let's just finish with just one or two things of doing the opposite before we wind down to close. So shift to lying on your front. Reach your arms back alongside you, palms face the floor. And then as you're ready, lift your arms, legs, and chest away from the floor, locust pose. With your fingertips, you're almost trying to stretch back to touch your heels. And then squeeze your shoulders a little bit towards each other. Legs lifting up. And then lower down, rest. You might rest your forehead on your hands, or you could turn your face to one side. And then perhaps one more of those. Reach your arms back alongside you. If it would feel nice to interlink your fingers behind you, you could do that. Just for today, maybe let's not bring the heels of your hands together, even if they comfortably will. Then we'll be giving wrists a little bit of a stretch. If you don't prefer interlinking your fingers, you just stretch your arms back like I'm doing. And then same thing, lift everything up. Sit back and neck, just feeling long, shoulder blades away from your ears. And then when you've had enough, you come down, rest. And then we'll finish with just a couple of minutes of stillness. So you might like to lie down on your back. You could stay lying on your front. I'm going to sit up, but that doesn't mean you have to. If you're choosing to sit, make sure you're in a position where you're able to be reasonably upright. If you're lying down, just double check that you're as comfy as you can be where you are. And then we've thought a lot about your shoulders, so be just really fussy about how you place your arms, your shoulders, hands, so that they're able to relax. And if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you could do that. And just a brief class today, so maybe a brief moment of quiet to finish. Noticing perhaps that you can feel yourself breathing where you feel that the most. Is there one of your nostrils that your breath flows more easily through? Is there any tension you could let go of around your forehead? Notice how your neck and shoulders feel just as you inhale. And relax them a little more as you exhale. And then make each of your next 3 breaths a bit deeper than the one that came before. And as you're ready to, take a long, deep inhale up into your chest. Maybe hold it in for a moment and make the exhale that follows just long and slow, unhurried. If you chose to lie down on your front, you might shift to child's pose or all fours. If you're lying on your back, maybe hug your knees into your chest. And then when you're ready to, come up to sit. If you're not there already, you could choose to finish with your hands in your lap, maybe hands in prayer, perhaps hands on you somewhere, feeling your breath. That's your choice. As you inhale, sit up tall. Exhale, drop your chin. And thank you very much.